Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, welcome to the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas. Thrilled you guys could be here tonight, and we've got an epic night on the portal. This is one that I've been waiting for a long time, and it's an absolute honor to have this gentleman with us tonight. But I guess before I go any further, I should welcome to the show the one and only Mr. Ron Morehead. How you doing, sir?
Great, Brett. Thank you. Thanks for asking me on.
Oh yeah, it's great to have you on, and thanks so much for making the time to be here with us. Um, what can I say? I think in the Bigfoot world, everybody knows your name. I mean, you are just one of those staple figures in the great grand history of people looking into the phenomena, and it's a distinct honor to have the chance to have you on.
That shows you how old I am. Huh?
Well, you're wearing it well for what it's worth.
Well, I've been doing this for right at 5 decades now since I ran into a family of them. So,
Wow.
uh, kind of led me into a lot of stuff and
Yeah.
adventures
Yeah, for
for sure.
sure. And it turns out in a great way your life calling just by accident, huh?
Yeah, no, I planned this. I didn't plan it when I was younger. No, well, I guess everybody was younger before today, huh? But I, no, I ran into these things when I was 29 years old up in the Sierra Nevada mountains with a hunting group,
Uh-huh.
and it's been an adventure ever since. Yeah.
Oh, I
So,
can I can imagine. Now, I guess what I'd first like to ask you, and this is I guess kind of the standard first question to ask you is, before this happened, did you believe in Sasquatch? Did you believe in Bigfoot?
I didn't believe either way. I didn't know either way.
Okay.
I didn't think about it. Most people don't. They think there's a bunch of crazy people out there who believe there's some kind of monkey running around the woods. That's what they think. Some of them still do, but there's more to them than that. I found out through my encounters with them and studies I've done on giants and different things. So it's
Yeah.
it's a lot to get into once you get into it. It kind of grabs a hold of you. It becomes my passion for sure because
Hmm.
just a lot going on that we don't see with our eyes, and that's what I got into. Is but I did see them. I mean, once.
Uh-huh.
Uh, they are being seen. People see them. We were able to record the vocalizations, which I'm getting ahead of you here, so just stop me and run me loose or whatever. But I don't know. At the very beginning, I started researching, trying to figure out where giants came from, because these things are humongous, and they're right there among us and making all these weird sounds, and just got to kind of step back and research. So
Yeah.
that's what I've been doing for almost 50 years, pretty
Wow.
much all over the world. I've been into Nepal, Russia, South America a couple of times too, and Siberia. Just checking it out, seeing
Wow.
what they may have in common. Those ones in the Himalayas, the Yeti, and see if they have anything in common with these that we're experiencing here in the Northwest.
Yeah, well, yeah, and that's something that I do want to get into later, and I hope I remember because there's a question that I've got for you, and you are the perfect person to ask it, and I've postulated it for a while, but we'll get into that in a little bit. But I guess it should start with the Sierra sounds. This is the recordings that you and your partners made up in the Sierra Mountains. Walk us through that if you would, please.
Yeah, we were all recording. I mean, once the Johnson brothers, who have been frequenting that camp for hunting since 1958, they didn't know what to think of these sounds that started up around the site up there in 71. And when they went out later and seen this big track, well, they realized there's something out here. It's not a bear. It's something very unusual.
Hmm.
So they went back in this little hutchie shelter that we got up there and hovered over in there all night long. They had guns. I always carry guns. We all carry guns. That's no
Hmm.
big deal because it's a hunting camp. That's what you do when you're hunting. And anyway, they came out and told us the story. The guys went back. I didn't go back the first time because I wasn't really part of the group. I was just their friends, but I wasn't a hunter then.
Hmm.
But I figured one of the guys, he got scared off and he just wouldn't go back by himself. So the guys were late coming out, and the women were worried. The wives were worried. So he asked me if I could go, if I'd accompany him up there to see if the guys are okay. Because at that time, didn't know what they were dealing with because they're very aggressive soundings. The first ones were very aggressive, and it kind of makes you wonder if they're gonna if you're arguing over who's going to eat you first or what's going to happen. You don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know what kind of monster you're dealing with if you think it's a monster because you just don't know. So anyway, I went back up there with him. He about killed me getting me in there because I thought I was in shape. But man, that's a trip. And about 8 miles back into the wilderness, and there's 5 of us all together, 6, I guess, once Al Berry, which next year we got a hold of Alan Berry, who was investigative reporter. Actually, that's through Ivan Sanderson, a cryptozoologist. Warren Johnson, the leader of our group, he passed away now, but he wrote Ivan Sanderson a 23-page handwritten letter and told him about what was going on. And I got a hold of the letter that Ivan Sanderson sent to Peter Byrne right after that and said, you might want to check this out. Peter Byrne's in Oregon.
Okay.
And Peter Byrne thought it was probably a hoax too, just like Ivan Sanderson did, just too incredible. And so Peter, knowing Al Berry, who lived in California, got a hold of him and said, you want to go down and talk to these guys? Probably nothing to it, but you might want to check it out. So he came down and interviewed us all separately together and heard the sounds that we had ended up recording after all this started. We went a couple of recorders. And anyway, we invited him in 1972 after the snow melted and we get in. The camp's 8,400 feet high in the Sierra Nevada mountains. There's a lot of snow up there. As much as 20 feet up there, or more.
Oh, jeez.
And once it melts, April, May, something like that, we can get in. So we went back. He went back, and he started frequenting the camp as often as he could. But he had a day job too in Redding, California, as a newspaper reporter at the time. And he ended up trying to find the hoax. Who could be pulling this off? Because these things started making their sounds when they come in at night, and he just was trying to find who could be pulling this off, and he was looking for a hoax all this time. We didn't know that. We really didn't. None of us knew that we thought he was just being friendly and wanted to explore this thing like we were.
Sure.
We were just novelists, underestimating what they were at the time, thinking they're just some unidentified ape running around out there. But we knew they were chattering amongst themselves. And later I found out that Albert Ostman, who was written about in John Green's book, The Apes Among Us.
Yeah.
He said they were chattering amongst themselves when he'd got kidnapped and was held up for 6 days up in British Columbia. So he said they were chattering amongst themselves. So it was held by a male, a female, and 2 adolescents, and he escaped, gave his report, and it's deemed pretty credible by everybody that's read it. And of course, John Green thought it was totally convinced that it was true. I went up there years later, 1996. Actually, I flew in there with my plane with Peter Byrne and Al Berry and a photographer or videographer, trying to explore the Toba Inlet. That's where he was.
Yeah.
And we couldn't determine the bowl where he said he was kept in. He said he was kept in about a 10-acre bowl of mountains, and there's only one way out. And so a lot of people who've researched this at all know the story, so I don't need to go into great detail. But anyway, that was the kind of sound right, because he said we were chattering amongst themselves. Well, that's what they do. They chatter really rapidly.
Right.
And it's found out later on in 2008 when the cryptologist got a hold of our recordings and come out and interviewed us. He studied them like Dr. Curlin did originally to find out they were true. They weren't manipulated in any way. They weren't speeded up. They weren't slowed down. They were real. And Al Berry fostered that study actually at the University of Wyoming. So there's been a lot of credibility behind them because of the Al Berry. Basically, he's the one who later on became a good friend of mine, and we started talking together and going out. But the cryptolinguist, Scott Nelson, determined they have a language by the human definition of language, and that's important because language we didn't think about it then. We didn't think about a lot of things back then. We just kind of having fun with it after we got to pass the scare factor. That's important, by the way, the fear factor. Gets you these sounds when they're right just a few feet away from you outside the shelter,
Yeah.
And anyway, he said they have language, a complex language by the human definition of language. That means, very important, that means they have what they call a morpheme stream of words that fit together in a sapient sentence.
Oh.
And you got that kind of stuff going on. Only humans are supposed to have that, according to Dr. Lieberman. In 1968, he wrote a paper and said that only humans have the capability of speech like we do. It takes the hyoid bone up here, specifically tied to the nerves of the tongue and into the brain to create what we're doing right now, sapient speech.
Sure.
And these things have that, and only humans are supposed to have that. So what does that tell us there?
Right.
Uh, it kind of tells me that there may be a human component to these things.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you don't find this out till years later. You're really starting to look into everything, and so that's how it kind of began with me and the other guys. And some of them passed away now. I just talked to Bill McDowell. He's my good friend in California,
Mm-hmm.
and he's still doing well. He was my packing buddy. Him and I had the horses and mules and packed the supplies in and out up there. So anyway, it's been fun. It still is fun.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying this. I enjoy doing what I'm doing right now, and I thank you again for having me on.
Oh, sure. Now, I think this would probably be a good point to start playing at least a few of these sounds. I think they're absolutely well. They're frightening a little bit, and they're exciting a little bit. They are just such a different. I
They're
don't
kind
know.
of they're kind of spread out over from 71 through 74.
Okay.
They stopped interacting with us real close up, interacting with us in 1976 when we had to shoot a bear
Oh,
right there in camp who was tearing us up, and he actually, which is unusual for black bears, but he came at us, and we had tried to shoot him off a few times, but he was tearing up our sacks, our pack sacks. We
sure.
hauled in on the mules of food, and anyway, we shot him. And, that stopped the close-up stuff. I don't know if that's what stopped it or if they just got bored with us, but
Oh,
something stopped
okay.
it.
Well, the first one that I'm going to play, you've titled "Rapid Fire Sequence," and ladies and gentlemen, this is the Sierra Sounds. Wow, that is just bone chilling.
Yeah, it kind of puckers you a little bit. But we're inside the shelter with our guns, and
Sure.
we're ready to shoot our way out if we have to. But you don't know. Again, at that time, we didn't know if they was arguing with each other
Hmm.
about who's going to come in after us, or if they were arguing about who's going to get the food that we left out, or just what it was all about. We just didn't know, and still don't know. But we suspect they were kind of arguing amongst themselves at the time. There was two
Oh,
of them, by the way,
yeah. I was
and
gonna
you can
say,
tell how rapidly they speak.
yeah. That's it's just to us, of course, it sounds like a jumble of words, but there again, if anybody goes to a country where they're not familiar with the language, when the native speakers speak, it's not slow. It's quick and delivered, and it sounds like a jumble of sounds to us. So this is, I not that my opinion matters much, but it is complex. It's very complex.
It, yeah, the cryptolinguist he's right into it now. This is a complex language, and he has been trained by the Navy as a cryptolinguist, retired from the Navy as a cryptolinguist. He teaches foreign languages now in Missouri, and he's got one of these guys that's got perfect hearing. He's a two-time graduate of the Language Institute of Foreign Language Institute in California, and he's made the statement they have a language, and he had to slow it down, I guess,
Mm.
to transcribe it, and he did transcribe a language out of it. So, and he was trained to pick out problems with languages,
Mm-hmm.
to foreign languages, you don't know what they are.
Right.
And anyway, that was unique. That was a really good step up again from Dr. Curlin's report from 1978, I think it was. Dr. Curlin, University of Wyoming, studied the sounds for a year, and he gave the credibility to them that they weren't manipulated. These were not slowed down. They were not speeded up. He had the original tapes. Al Berry let him have them, and they they were not manipulated. They
Mm-hmm.
go below what a human can do. They are inside what a human can do, our language right now, and
Mm-hmm.
they go way above it, which suggests that they can make any sound they want to make. And I found that to be true. They can mimic just about anything you think you're hearing out there. What gives them away is the amplitude. They can't hide the lung capacity. They're very loud. And that'll jar you when they're right outside like that, I tell you.
I can
It
imagine.
shakes the walls of that shelter a little bit.
Yeah, and you hear that so often from people that are real close when those Sasquatch let loose, and it really does have a physiological effect on them. Like it's not just wow that was really loud I should turn that down. It does like it truly affects the people in a very physical way.
Yeah. I've had some very strange things happen. We all have up there at the camp.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that happened with Warren Johnson and I, we knew one was out there. By then we were getting a little bit, we knew they weren't going to eat us. We didn't think they were. And we heard this thing jabbering out there. We thought, well, we'll jump outside this shelter door right quick and we might get a glimpse of it run away. It's bright moonlit night. And we started walking up towards where that tree was, huge tree, and it has to be behind this tree right here. It didn't run away.
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden we just got froze in our tracks. I mean, just like a wall, a force field wall, like I related to a Star Trek force field, But he
Right.
looked at me, and we were probably 15 feet apart, and hadn't been talking. He said, "I don't know about you, but I can't move." And I said, "I can't either. I couldn't go forward." I
Wow.
mentioned this to a scientist later on. And he says, "We don't study fear. If that's your fear." I said, well, "We weren't afraid. We were up there just thinking we was going to see this thing, and we realized they probably weren't going to harm us at that point." So
Mm-hmm.
he said, "Well, it has to be the infrasound
Mm-hmm.
or ultrasound, or pheromones," he said. Infrasound or pheromones, because pheromones will only work within the same species. Infrasound will affect human emotion. It'll freeze you. It'll do just that. Hitler was working with infrasound in World War II anyway. And it's a unique thing that they probably have. A lot of large animals have it. Elephants work in infrasound. Big tigers do. Giraffes do.
Mm-hmm.
Infrasound is you don't hear it, but you feel it.
Mm-hmm.
So I assumed it was probably infrasound they were working with. You talk about the frequencies they can get to. And but now that I think I've determined within my own head anyway that they are hybrids and they are part human,
Mm-hmm.
it might have been pheromones. Who
Oh.
knows? I just know I got froze and he did too, and it happened to me one other time out in the forest when I was walking along, not even thinking about Bigfoot, and I had that happen. Just all of a sudden you get stopped. You can't do anything. You're looking around trying to see what's causing this. You don't see anything.
Right.
Get the hair standing up on the back of your neck. It's one of those things. It is a good venture, that's for sure.
That's got to be incredibly daunting to be frozen in place, because you have
Well,
to.
we could go backwards.
Oh,
I
you
say frozen
could.
in space.
Oh,
We could go backwards. We just couldn't go forward anymore. And
wow.
again, it's probably done through frequency. That's what I'm guessing because of their really elevated vocal mechanism. They have something very unique.
Mm-hmm.
They've made sounds up there that you just could not imagine. Uh, and I talk about this in my first book. Uh, but anyway, uh, we can go on from there, I guess. But
Sure.
frequency is very important. And I
Okay.
get into that in my Quantum Bigfoot book where it says, Tesla says everything is energy, frequency, and vibration.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think that's profound. Let's get to the next one here, and this is a rhythmic sequence. And let's play this one. Still good to go. Okay. Wow. Now, was the tapping them too? Was that clacking or
Yeah,
tapping?
no, that was them. Whatever it was, I don't know if he's hitting us, slapping his leg or hitting a rock against another rock, what he was doing, but didn't see him doing this, so you don't know. But it wasn't until '74 when I actually saw one that was making sound, so that kind of, because everybody says, well, you didn't see what was making sound, so you don't know what was making sound. Well, we know what was making sound.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. Because you got to wonder if those taps were important to whatever he was conveying or she was conveying. I mean, I can't pretend to know the gender,
Yeah,
but
you
was
do wonder.
yeah, like is that part of the vocal sequence that I don't know somehow illuminates what their point is? I don't
I
know.
don't know. They got some strange sounds up there. I mean,
Wow.
yeah, you
Let's.
don't know what they're doing.
Oops, sorry. I prematurely launched this one.
Oh,
This is the whistles.
whistle interaction. Yeah.
Wow. So was one of you whistling with them, or was this actually
That was Warren Johnson. Yeah,
okay?
he would whistle and the thing was whistling back, and that was an interaction sequence. Which they got a really unique whistle. They whistle through their vocal cords. They don't
Oh,
whistle through their lips like we do. That was found out through the study too. And I got a recording which you hear a whistle, but you hear just kind of morph into sounds that they're making.
oh,
So it's like I don't know what's going on, but they do it through their vocal cords, not through their lips like we do.
wow, that's intense. Okay, and there's two more, and let's. This one is the whoop interaction. I recognize that sound.
Yeah.
I'm trying to imitate him.
So you can hear him breaking into the speech after that in the distance as well, huh?
Yeah, that was done in 1974. That was an exciting night because that's the first time that they started interacting with us while we're outside the shelter. Just Bill and I were up there. We packed some supplies in and on the horses and mules, and these things well, there's a long story to it, but long and short is that I seen this samurai. They call it the samurai cry. This big one that makes that big. I don't know if I sent you that sound or not, but that's when I seen one shooting down towards where two others were, and I couldn't define what it looked like other than it was fast and smooth, very fast, rapidly moving, and I just seen shooting through the trees, and that was
Wow.
exciting because I was the one yelling out at them there in that recording, and I had these little recorders in their saddlebags, and I missed the first 12 minutes of what was going on because I didn't get the tape recorder set up right,
Sure.
and but the whooping sounds, I think, was what they start. Well, they start with a big limb breaking. That's how they would start with us. Either that or a big blowing sound. And the limbs breaking would be a huge, it's not like something stepped on a limb. It's, with definition, really loud crack. And then you don't do anything. You got to be still. We found out if you just start jumping around, shining flashlights, they can be gone. So we didn't do anything. We just kept doing what we was doing. We just started getting dark on us, and anyway, that's the night that I saw one. But the whooping sound I was going to say is I think they're singling back and forth because you hear the whoopings over here, and then you hear a rhythmic beat over here, some kind of like they're coding back and forth without really saying anything.
Sure.
And later on is when they started talking and yelling out at me and I was yelling back. Now I think they were kind of having fun with us because, again, you hear something kind of humorous in some of these recordings, and
Sure.
it's it's strange, but it's fun too. It's very
Yeah.
exciting, I should say. That's a better way to put it.
Absolutely. We're going to head to our first break, ladies and gentlemen, but as you can see, it's going to be an epic, epic night on the portal here. Our special guest, of course, is Mr. Ron Morehead, who's joining us, and we'll continue in just a few minutes, so don't go away. We'll be right back after these messages.
Tuned into the truth frequency.
Your protection from deception. TLR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and we are joined tonight by Mr. Ron Morehead, famous, of course, for the Sierra Sounds and for his book, The Quantum Bigfoot, and his years and years of researching and public speaking events. But we're absolutely thrilled to have him here with us tonight. Welcome, sir, again. And how you doing so far?
Great, thank you.
Good. Okay, we had a question in chat, and I think you kind of alluded to this in the first segment, but the person was asking, did you guys gift? And I know you had mentioned that you left out food, but were there other gifting attempts made with other items, or just the food?
Mostly just the food that we'd been eating. We'd make extra and leave it out for them. And that's what they were taking. And we thought that's why they were coming in, and might have been, but
Right.
one time we left out some, we came up there and there was some bad meat, lunch meats that had been left over from the previous trip, and also, so we left that out for them, and also there was some peppers that we had, and we left the jar open of those hot peppers, and the meat was gone, the peppers were empty, and we found over in a pile of dirt that we had dug for a new garbage pit, was a handprint, and underneath that was the rotten meat, the bad meat. But again, we was thinking it was like a bear, and the peppers were all gone, and that stopped them from taking our food for the rest of that season.
That's interesting because
But they still came around, so that was interesting.
so they did not want the soured meat.
No, they did not. They eat good food. They want food like we eat. They don't want bad stuff. At least the ones we were dealing with. I got to say that up front too. It's the ones we were dealing with, because I'll tell you this, I don't think they're all the same at
Right.
all.
Okay.
And,
That's very interesting, and I've heard that from other people saying the same thing, that they think that there's quite a bit of a diversity between different areas and groups and such. I would say though that I have heard many times people reporting that Bigfoot are seen by roadkill and grabbing roadkill and stuff and carrying it off, and you would think that would be a little rancid, but maybe it's fresh enough that it was okay or something too. But that's an interesting point.
maybe so.
Yeah.
I know they didn't eat bad stuff when we were up there. They didn't take our deer either when we shoot a deer and hang it up behind our shelter there after we skinned it. We had a cable back there we'd hang it on, and we found where they had moved it a time or two, just examining it, looking at it, but they never took it, and they never bothered it other than just moved it.
Huh.
Maybe it's out of respect. I don't know. Maybe they
That's
just.
what I was thinking. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know a lot of the answers.
Right, but I think that's exactly what came to me, is that they were respecting your measures and your achievements and not taking that. But of course, I do believe that they eat those things, so it's kind of cool that
I'm
they
sure
didn't.
they eat deer. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we would field dress them too out in the field. And of course, you go by the next day, you figure a bear or something got it, but who knows? These things might have got it.
Yeah.
We don't know. We just don't know.
Right. No, it's
We can only guess.
right. Yeah. I mean, and that's, I'll get, I understand. There's a whole lot of speculation, and that's one thing about this field, is that there are ideas spanning the entire realm of possibility, as far as what people believe that these things are and what they believe that they aren't. And I gotta say that, I don't think anybody knows for sure. It's just all ideas and hypothesis, but there does seem to be a big diversity between what people are experiencing. And I find that very interesting. Like there'll be people that will have a very benevolent experience, and there'll be people that'll have terrifying experiences. And
Well, I think I'll get into that, the reasoning for that, and why I think there's different types of these things, different genomes even, in my more recent book, with the Quantum Bigfoot. But I can talk about that later when you want to.
Sure.
Why I think that way.
absolutely, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. That'd be brilliant.
We'll get into it. You guys wait and see. It's fun.
You're
I'm
smiling.
excited about what I think I'm learning.
Yeah. No, I think that'll be great. But there's one more file that you sent me, a sound file of the Sierra Sounds here. And so let's play that. And it's called the Apollo question. Apollo or Apollo? I'm not sure how to pronounce that.
I call it Apollo because that's what it sounds like it says to me. But it's he's asking me something. I think the inference there is that it's a question.
Okay.
I don't know I still don't know to this day what it was saying or what it was trying to say or ask me, but
Sure.
I was trying to respond to it.
Okay. Well, let's put that up there and let everybody hear that. That is brilliant. I mean, it really does sound like a question. It's got the
Yeah.
raising tone at the end, like, like, what the hell you doing?
Well, that wasn't all. There's more went on that night too.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, the first book I wrote, Voices in the Wilderness, it comes with a CD if you order it on my website.
Oh, beautiful.
Or you can get the download online with the book too. Well, I don't have to mail that one out. It goes to you automatically, but it doesn't have the CD in it. So, but you can get the download information from it and hear the sounds that go with the book. As I get to the context of what I'm talking about, you can hear the sound that we heard, and it's gone well. I wrote that first, and it's my chronicle of doing this for so long.
Right.
And it goes through the things we went through and what we were doing and what went on. So you can pick little nuggets out of it or what might work for you. Because if you're trying to experience these things, you might glean something from that book.
Mm-hmm. So this went over a period of time. After the interaction stopped up there, what direction did you take next, or what did you do after that the experiences up there had kind of come to a close?
Well, they really didn't come to a close. They just stopped
Okay.
coming in close. They were still out there. We'd find tracks and hear their sounds from a distance sometimes. My daughter seen one in 1996, I think it was, real clear, good shot of that. And different things have happened. I was up there in 2016, and we had something pretty unusual happen,
Mm-hmm.
which we can talk about when we get into the other aspect of these creatures. But
Sure.
I took David Pilates up there, him and his videographer up there in 2018, July, about a year and a half ago, and they filmed it for the first time. I've taken a filmer up there for the first time to do this. I'm glad I did because things started burning after that in California.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not sure how much of the camp is left, but the whole area was supposed to be on fire.
Wow.
So that was 2018, and that's available now. Actually, his 15-minute interview with me is available on, I think it's The Hunted, Missing 411, The Hunted,
Oh, okay.
and it's a DVD, and he did a real good job. But what I was going to say is, there was something, I'll just tell you what happened.
Sure.
We were in this little tent because the shelter's down now, and Carrie and I, and this light, I refer to it like a saber, Star Wars saber light, comes floating by us.
Oh my God.
I mean, that's a little concerning. You don't know you don't know what it's all. You don't know. You
Yeah.
just don't know.
Right.
And we watched that thing for several seconds. So it was floating through the trees, and it was amazing. It was glowed. Just
Oh.
yeah. So that's strange, but that's not so strange for up there. There's a lot of strange things happened up there.
Sure.
And but that's the last thing. The last time I was up there, we packed in with horses and mules, and he filmed all of it and documented a lot of things that I had to say about it up there. And that's in the Missing 411, which can be acquired also.
Oh,
If you
okay.
want to get that. But he's a nice guy, David is.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I really got to applaud what he's done with his work and the awareness that he's raised about a lot of the concerns about what's going on out there. I mean,
I've known David for a long, long time. First met him over in Santa Cruz when he used to live in California. We spoke at a meet over there, and he's called me a few times and said, make sure you take guns up there with you, because we were getting too loose with summertime. You really need a gun. I mean, you're not hunting,
right.
but there's other things that can bother you up there.
Sure.
I killed a 50-inch rattlesnake on the trail up there one time.
Oh, jeez.
I got a hat band made out of that. But there's things like that goes on, and plus, if somebody gets lost, you can signal them with a gun.
Right.
I don't discredit anybody that says they don't want to take a gun, but that's not going to interfere with what's going on. At least it never interfered with what went on with us. We had guns all the time, and but David called me a few years ago, just when I went up there. I was going to go up by myself, and I did go up by myself. It was the summer Scott Nelson, the cryptolinguist, came out from Missouri, and we made 3 trips up there that summer. Spent about a week each time. He was trying to collect some more corroborative recordings, which didn't happen, by the way. His batteries would go dead or something would happen, and but we didn't hear anything either that we could directly relate to Bigfoot, because I watch for any other reason it could be besides these things. It could be something else. You got to say that's what it is, unless you know it couldn't be those things.
Right.
And but nothing happened that we could definitively say was a Bigfoot. So I wanted to go back up after he went back to his teaching job in Missouri, and I had a guy scheduled to go up with me, one of the gentlemen that knows about the place, and he backed out the last minute. So I said, I'm just going to go up there anyway, because I want to find out if these things are still around, if they're going to interact or not. So I went up there, and by myself.
Wow.
And, man, that's not a good thing to do.
Yeah.
I was right outside, and wham, just a big old, I call it in my book a wood knock, but the more I think about it, the more I'm wondering if it was really a wood knock. But it was like a gunshot going off right outside my tent. Now, no one's up there, by the way. We're 8 miles in the wilderness, and it's really not an easy trick anyway, and it's just a trek. It's just not something,
Right. There's not
no one's
teenagers up there messing around.
Well, we're not dummies. We're up there looking anyway. And, anyway, I talk about that in my book, and it's just I got a question if it was really a wood knock, because they do hit on trees, they do knock on trees, and we got that recorded rhythmically. But this wasn't like that. It was something else, far more significant.
Wow.
And after I got into quantum physics, I got to think maybe it could be something else, which I could reveal later if you want me to. But
Yeah,
it gets me off. Someone might throw me out in right field right now if I told you right now. I gotta set the whole quantum physics thing up.
No, I understand, and I think you're doing a great job. Certainly, I mean, many people have witnessed a lot of strange stuff that doesn't fit with the traditional thinking of these things. And I've interviewed several witnesses through the years that have seen things that, I mean, if they're not on drugs, if they're not, having some form of hallucination, if they're not ill, whatever, then what they're seeing is absolutely phenomenal and fascinating and concerning, because it changes the dynamic of everything.
Well, it's classical science. We're trying to grade everything by what we've learned in grade school, which is Newtonian physics. And I found out that's not going to answer everything. It's all conditioned on what's measurable and predictable and physical, and that's just not the way everything is. There's only certain parameters we see, and a certain frequency we can see in with light's frequency. And you get outside of that, and you're not seeing it with your eyes, but it doesn't mean it's not there.
Right.
So we can talk about that some more if you want to. But
absolutely, might as well dive into that stuff, because I know
dive into it now.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
We're already getting up to the hour.
Something from Tesla. You guys know who Tesla is, don't you?
Oh, sure, Nikola Tesla.
By the way, could people see me, or they just hear my voice right now?
No, they see you. You're on camera. They don't.
Oh, really?
They see
oh,
you
my
and
gosh.
me.
Okay. Well, it says the day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in 1 decade than in all the previous centuries of its existence.
Yeah.
I like that.
I do too.
And I think that's happening now. We're studying things that are non-physical, and there's several other physicists, theoretical physicists especially, are open-minded. And Tesla, you find out Tesla, Einstein, all those guys were having some real issues trying to work with quantum physics, because it really it just totally changes your perception of reality, because you find out, and I got to say this, but it's going to throw some people off, but nothing is real until it's observed.
Yes.
Time as we perceive it is not real. It's only real for us in this three-dimensional world, three-dimensional environment, because we live in a linear time frame. Everything we think is tomorrow or yesterday, and we grade things like that. That's not the way the universe works. And the math in quantum physics has determined that. It's just that in order to disprove it, it has to be disproven mathematically. And so far, no one's been able to do that. We live in 3 dimensions, but there's at least 11, maybe 12, that's been established mathematically, and that's accepted by physicists all over the world. What that does, it takes us into a different area, a different element of consciousness.
Sure.
And we are conscious beings. And classical science, Newtonian physics, science itself cannot answer how our consciousness works, how telepathy works, how our feelings work, how all this stuff works. They don't know. They can't say. Quantum physics will answer that for you. And because there are other dimensions, and that's where it gets deep. It gets real deep. Because I think there's an alien component to these beings.
Yes.
And from eons ago, they've been aliens, I think, have been here. There's evidence of that all over Peru. I've seen it. I've seen stuff that if you see it for yourself, you got to believe it. And but they have messed with the DNA of different type of beings on this earth. And the reason why, I think, I'll tell you about that later, but they do that to, I think they're acclimating their species to this environment. That's why a lot of the DNA, some of the DNA that we've had come back on these things shows that the mitochondrial DNA, the maternal side is mostly human, and that was established by a physicist in Texas. And then you got another physicist that went up in the Himalayas and got some eDNA out of some what they thought was Yeti tracks, bipedal tracks in the snow at 17,000 feet. And she came back after she did her study and said the mitochondrial was 99% human.
Wow.
So you got these DNAs, but classical science, regular science, mainstream science, let's call it that, are giving them thumbs down, because if they got human DNA in it, they have to be contaminated, is what they're saying.
Right. Yeah.
And then you can't identify the nuclear DNA, which is the male counterpart. And when you can't do that, out of 227 billion samples in the gene bank, there's something wrong with your study.
Right.
So they won't credit these people. And yet I tend to think there's a core of history, a core of truth to a lot of the history that in Greek mythology, biblical history, and ancient texts of all kinds that talk about giants and how they came about from alien intervention into the human genome or genome of different type of beings, including different entities, I should say.
Sure.
So that's what gives me the idea that these things could be a component, a UFO component, an alien component. And it's kind of exciting to think about when you start looking into it deeper. Eons, these things have been here for eons. Giants have been here for eons. And I think some of them have been diluted down in crossbreeding with indigenous people. And that would make some of them more human-like than others. They may have lost some of the attributes they originally had. You got some that can do things that others don't seem to do.
Right.
You hear a lot of them just scream or yell or something like that. But what we had up there in the Sierras has a language, and they talk, and they do other things too. I mean, one time I mentioned this in my book, Voice in the Wilderness, that we thought our camp was being tore apart. We look out the shelter door, and nothing's changed. I mean, nothing. The barrels were all still there. All our food was still in them, and you think that those cans and everything is just being thrown around, but nothing changed. Well, how do they do that?
Right.
Are we hearing into another dimension? Are we being hypnotized, all of us? What's happening? Those are questions that we could not answer then, and I'm trying to answer those now. I think I am successfully, in my mind anyway, answering them through the laws of quantum physics. It's how the universe works. It's how everything works throughout the universe. It's through the laws of quantum physics. I think that's how Christ did his miracles, was through the laws of quantum physics. As he said, we can do them too.
Yeah.
So we doing three-dimensional beings are not shortchanged as humans. In fact, we got everything in us if we could just learn how to evolve it and get it out.
Yeah.
'Cause a lot of people are telepathic. That's no big secret. We're all telepathic. We just learn how to make it happen, how to clean up our pineal gland, how to do the things we're supposed to do. What we've lost over all this time is what we're supposed to come back to. But when you get into the dimensional aspects of different dimensions, that's where I think why you can't find Bigfoot a lot of times, because I think they can pass through mass from energy. They have a mass. That's why you see trackways disappear, because all of a sudden I used to write these people off, and they said the tracks just disappeared. They stopped. Well, it's a hoax, right?
Sure.
Well, not necessarily, because I had it happen to me. My daughter saw one this morning. That morning, we found the trackway. The tracks were that deep. I mean, we couldn't even make an impression in the dirt and in the granite. And we followed those trackways, and all of a sudden it just stopped. And I thought, okay, it jumped up in a tree. No. It jumped to a big rock, a boulder or something. No. It went somewhere. Well, then it got me thinking, how could this happen? It's through density. Because if we are dense as the mass that our body is, and these things have a mass too, when they're in physical form, like all animals do, they'll leave a track. Well, when their mass is, if they can change their mass to energy only, and we all are energy at the most minute level of our being, everybody is energy.
Yep.
These things are energy. So if they can change their mass to energy through a vocal frequency, they wouldn't have the density, and their tracks wouldn't be there. They would just be energy.
Wow.
And that's kind of cool, I think.
That's very cool.
If that's true.
Well,
So what do they do then?
Yeah.
I think they reside in the fifth dimension, because a lot of people talk about how they mind speak. Well, do they mind speak? I'm too analytical. I haven't been receiving that, but a lot of people say they do, and a lot of people say they do in this field. And I think if you mind speak, you're not seeing anything. You just think you're hearing something inside your head somehow. It's like something telling you to do something when you was going to do something else.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like telepathy, except it's from another dimension. And that's another level of consciousness that exists for other beings in other dimensions. And I say this too, aliens and UFOs, they're not better than us. They aren't. They just have a different level of consciousness. They understand how things work in their dimension, and they will understand how things work in our dimension too. But they are. I think they're envious of. They want this Earth. They want everything this Earth has. This Earth has everything. It's got all kinds of plants and animals, and it's got everything. And you got to admit, this is the jewel of the solar system, right?
I think so.
The jewel of the solar system. I almost said galaxy. Maybe the galaxy. Who knows? Yeah. But I think that the reason you're seeing so many UFOs being reported, and by the way, Navy now acknowledges the UFOs from that Tic Tac film that Commander Favor talks about and took a picture of. So a lot of people are accepting the fact that UFOs are out there, and everybody has to have a pretty close mind, have to have their head in the sand to think that maybe we're the only people in the universe. That's pretty incredible if anybody thinks that.
Yeah.
If you're seeing these things and people are seeing them, I just got a call today from someone who said they've seen something that was in the sky, bright light, and all of a sudden, I thought it was an airplane to start with, but it wasn't moving. Then all of a sudden it moved one way, then another way, then all of a sudden it burst out into other little lights.
Wow.
And it was way up high, so it wasn't some guy messing around with a drone or something. So anyway, there's a lot going on now, and I think we're in a really special time in this earth and in our lives that things are going to start happening. And we just got to be aware. Quantum physics is something you may never really get your head wrapped around, because no one can, because it gets out of our 3D.
Right.
What we are. But you can try to understand it. You may not understand it, but you can try, and you got to just comprehend it. It's kind of like even the Bible says, it's faith. It's faith. You got to just, because you're never going to understand it all. We're not made to understand it. Our bodies just aren't into that dimension. But people who say they get mind speak are from these beings which are able to transfer from mass to energy into the fifth dimension. And I think sometimes when people say they saw them cloak, by the way, there's a person in that same film I was telling about earlier that I'm in who saw something moving from tree to tree. It's like a pixelated form.
Wow.
And they did a real good recreation of that. David Pilates did. And I suggest anybody wants to understand some of that stuff, look at that, because it's true.
Cool.
But my wife seen that pixelated thing. She didn't want to talk about it. She's a very intelligent lady, by the way. She's got all kinds of smart things going on. She didn't want me to say anything about it, but she saw a pixelated form, and it was just like a Bigfoot, what you'd think a Bigfoot would see. And in her mind, she said, I can't believe this. You got to change or do something. All of a sudden, right at that moment, it turned and looked right at her and then
Wow.
turned back. And
Man.
what I think is happening is what you're seeing is their energy,
Sure.
and you're seeing it through a plasma field, and it's probably in the fourth dimension going to the fifth. At that spot where she saw it, she found out later these people that live there have seen these things in the flesh, and where she saw this is right where they've been seeing them. It's called the gardener, and he's 9'3" tall. It's just a big Bigfoot, and there's a whole family of them there.
Wow. Well, Ron, hold that thought for a second.
Sorry, I'm
No,
babbling on.
no, you're doing great. I want to continue this. I'm very intrigued, but we are about to go to our hour break, ladies and gentlemen. So just hang on. We will be right back in just a few minutes. Don't go away with more of the Paranormal Portal and our guest Ron Morehead right here. We'll be right back.
Play their games. Everybody loves to place their bets. They don't understand the price I paid. They don't care to comprehend. Trace their lines upon my body, flipping scars across my heart. Raging anger pours inside me as their lies keep falling apart. With my silence, I am not a stupid boy. No more breaking me with kindness, just you dance upon my joy. Leading me with empty promise, you're just another fucking mess. Taking another slice of my sanity, just make sure that you're well fed.
like those she's with. They're attracted to the one thing about her that is different from themselves. Her life force is very strong. It gives off its own illumination. It is a light that implies life and memory of love and home and earthly pleasures. Something they desperately desire, but can't have anymore. Right now, she's the closest thing to that.
Poltergeist are usually associated with an individual. Hauntings seem to be connected with an area. A house, usually.
Poltergeist disturbances are of fairly short duration, perhaps a couple of months. Hauntings can go on for years.
And so can that intro to our second hour, ladies and gentlemen. It can go on for years and years. But welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here. This is the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas. For those of you that are new to the show, just so you understand, we do the breaks because as we're broadcasting, if you're checking it out on YouTube or whatever, we're also broadcasting on TFRlive.com, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and TalkStream Live, and there's breaks that are scheduled there. So in order to keep everything in sync, for those of you on YouTube, that's why you're seeing the commercial breaks. So it's just for congruity, and thank you to those of you who are donating right now. I really appreciate it. It helps out a ton. Love you guys bunches. Thank you so much. But our special guest tonight is Ron Morehead, who is joining us. And we just started to scratch the surface here of the really good stuff, because this is the stuff that I love. I really do love this. As you know, the show is Paranormal Portal, and we discuss all of these things all of the time, and the fascinating reality or the rediscovery of reality in light of the paranormal phenomena. And certainly what you're discussing about the Bigfoots having these supernatural abilities, for lack of a better term, and I realize that that's kind of a stereotypical word and comes with its own connotations. I think it's just, abilities we just don't understand. But I have to tell you that I think I love the fact that some research is going this direction, because for generations, for all of this time, the First Nations have been saying these things have powerful medicine. They can do amazing things. They lived around these things for thousands of years. They are not, and most of us Westerners dismiss that as well. That's just more of that mumbo jumbo stuff. But it's not. I mean, it's a very real phenomena that's happening, and people are witnessing it today. So, it's my hat's off to you for bringing this to the light, because I think it's vindication for those stories that have been handed down for generations.
I pay attention to Native American mythology and what they say. They say they live in two worlds. Mm-hmm. Well, what does that mean?
Right.
Yeah. They live in our world, and the fifth dimension, another world, whatever. But there's a statement here I'd like to read by Dr. Edgar Mitchell, who was an astronaut. He said there are no unnatural or supernatural phenomena, only very large gaps in our knowledge of what is natural. We should strive to fill those gaps of ignorance. And I just love that statement. He's got another statement here that I go to sometimes, and it takes
No, go ahead.
Bubbling around here.
Nope.
It takes classical and quantum sciences together to have clear perception. Mm-hmm. That's my best one. I love that one. Because without classical science, we gotta have classical science. That's how we know how long it takes a train to go somewhere. Right. It's all measurable and predictable. But quantum science is not. So there's a learning curve I think we need to go through if you want to get into this study. And that learning curve is putting those two sciences together. That's where I think mainstream science is missing it nowadays, because they're in parameters. They stay within those parameters of the discipline. Mm-hmm. And if you're not in those parameters, it's not going to work. They can't study it. They need to, I think, combine some quantum science with the classical science, and they'll have some clear perception maybe. And that's what I try to impress upon the scientists that I work with, and because they're afraid they're going to lose their tenure, they're going to lose credibility, they're going to lose respect in their academia circle, and they won't play golf with their buddy next week or something. But nobody totally understands this science, but it's been established. This is Einstein. It works, and we engage with it each day. It's throughout the universe. So, again, frequency, energy, and vibration. And if these beings, known as Bigfoot, that I encountered in the Sierras, have such a broad range of vocal abilities, which, by the way, I had this Thinker Thunker guy did a study on my sounds here a year or two ago, and I need to get that. I'm trying to get that now established by a scientific journal or somebody in a university to study it. But he says in one tone they make 5 octaves in one tone, which is inhuman. Yeah. No animal, no person on this earth can do that supposedly. If he's correct, and if I can get it, I just want it established or kicked out, one or the other, because if it's real and these things can do that, there's nothing to make me not believe that they couldn't create a frequency that would change their vibrational wave, their own vibration. And we change vibration quite regularly too at night. And that's why I call this the witching hour, because during the nighttime is when a lot of these things are being encountered. When the earth changes its frequency, when we are relaxed in a relaxed state, I call that between the alpha and the theta state of awareness. You're not totally asleep, but you're not thinking either. You're just kind of receiving, and that's when they can communicate with you. That's when they do what they do. If you're the right person, if you're the right person. If you're up there with a gun thinking you're going to try to shoot one, it's just not going to work. And they know that because I think they can read you. They read your aura. They know what they're doing. Anyway, I'm carrying on again.
No, that's what you're here for. You're here to carry on, sir. That way I don't have to talk much, and I love listening to what you have to say.
Well, that's me. I get carried away with this stuff because it's so fun. But anyway, I got a whole list of things that I go through with my PowerPoint program. That's what I'm looking at right now, by the way.
Well, I mean, feel free to bring any of them to the table, because I literally want to hear everything you have to say about this, because I'm fascinated.
Oh, well, how much time you got?
we got well, basically this whole hour, so.
Well, I'm just overwhelmed with the rules of quantum physics, because it's and I got into this years ago with when I started trying to figure out how they was doing the stuff they're doing, because Al Berry had a master's degree in science. He's passed away now, but he said, whatever you do, stay with science. If you get off on these and talk about the strange things that's gone on up here, you're going to get kicked out of put in the Lulu farm or something. And so I, for a long time, wouldn't talk about this, but I feel like I'm just free now, because I think there's a science that backs up what's been going on with these people and with us.
Yes.
And again, I don't think they're all the same, so they may not all have the same attributes. They may be, just like so many scientists say, they're just a relic hominid, but what's happened is eons ago, a long time ago, these things were manipulated by an alien, or a primate was. But over the eons, these things have progressed in different ways, because I think they might have mentioned this earlier, where they have probably crossbred with indigenous peoples, which would mean if they've crossbred, they would have 23 pairs of chromosomes. We haven't been able to establish that because we don't have a sample of one. But I've been told by geneticists that they have 23 pairs. But again, her account was thrown out because she couldn't find the nuclear DNA, the male counterpart of the study she was doing. So academia will just discount her whole report. Ask me something. I'm getting carried away here.
No, I think that's interesting, because we've heard many times that there's lots of samples, and it's not just Melba Ketchum, of course, that's run these samples. Apparently, other people have as well, and are coming back with the same results. So it's not like she just screwed something up. Like she's really been berated, and
she's going to get vindicated. You watch.
I hope so.
She will be totally vindicated, and she'll have the last laugh at all this, if there's a laugh to be had.
Yeah, well, I think that the more we learn about them, and this is my point of view on the paranormal, Ron, is that a lot of people think it's where things go sideways, where things are screwed up, or there's a glitch in things, and that's kind of what they equate the paranormal. But I think it's the breadcrumbs. I think it's the demonstrations that are being left for us to really see the dynamic nature of our reality, because we're conditioned to think in rigid bodies and 3 dimensions, and these are the walls and the framework within which we exist, and we don't realize, because I firmly believe that we are multidimensional entities as well. We just don't know how to touch that anymore, or we've lost that somehow. And you've been alluding to that all night, which I really respect, because I think you're absolutely right. I think it's in us. It's part of what we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's really powerful.
The UFO Bigfoot connection is there. I got a slide here I dug out, which 20% of the UFO sightings have, 20% of the Bigfoot sightings have a UFO component connection with it. And the first one, I got this out of the Humboldt County 1888 paper, where ranchers and a group of Native Americans described 3 crazy bears that descended from the sky in a small moon, leaving them in the woods. Wow. And I got that out of Huffington Post, that part right there, but this other one's out of Gaia. And it just, there's something going on. I interviewed a guy year before last from the Sierra Nevadas who hunts and has hunted there for 15 years, probably within 15 miles of where our camp is, but several hillsides or mountainsides over. And he'd been having some Bigfoot encounters, and he had to get a hold of me because he had seen a UFO hovering over this mountain in the daytime. He watched it for, said, 30 minutes, and he also saw a Bigfoot. Wow. Same time. He had ran a deer out into this meadow, and all of a sudden the deer stopped on the other side of the meadow and shot back right past him and his friend who was hunting with him. And he thought, well, there must be something over there that scared the deer. This is prior to the UFO sighting.
Sure.
And he's seen this Bigfoot step out. And he was really hesitant on trying to tell me all of it because he didn't want me to think he was loony, But he just seen part of it.
Sure.
He seen his leg, and he said, well, then the whole thing stepped out, and they walked away. Well, I said, where did it step out from? He said, well, it's been behind this tree. I said, well, how big was the tree? He said, it was about 2 foot around is all. He said, that's the strange part. He said, this thing had to be 4 foot wide in the shoulders. How to hide behind that tree? Wow. Well, I have a theory. If they are able to turn into energy, now here's where somebody's going to turn me off probably. But if they are able to turn their mass into energy, and there's other reports of this too, and even the Native American has this, they live in trees. Their energy can stay in trees. And that's why you see so many reports around where they're clearing forests, cutting trees. A lot of people report them being seen then. They have an issue with us cutting trees down, and that may be because trees are our lifeblood here in our physical world. We have to breathe what they create. Sure. And I just think there may be enough, and that may be what I heard when I heard that big crack up there, and when I was up there by myself, was the energy coming out of a tree. Oh, wow. That's, again, I better stop talking. No. Turn me off.
No, this is exactly why
it's a thought.
Yeah.
It's a thought. If they can change their mass to energy, and I do believe they can do that, and that's where the cloaking comes in, because people can see that if the temperature's right in the plasma field, they can see that energy. And that's what this lady saw that was in that 411 movie with me, with David Pilates, and that's what my wife saw. That's what other people have reported, is the pixelated, they call it the predator effect. The predator. Yep. How that pixelated form looks, and that's what people describe to me. Now, I've never looked for that because you don't see it. I got another picture. She's a researcher here in Washington, but she showed me this picture. She was walking along through the forest with her cat, and her cat, by the way, animals can see outside our frequency.
Oh, sure.
They can see more than we see. But her cat just stopped, and she looked around and started just filming the trees in the forest, and right by her was this pixelated form going by. And wow, to me
That's huge.
that's huge. And you know, what do you do with that?
Right. We, I
She was by
remember.
herself, but
I remember Barb Shoop. I used to
yeah,
watch
she's
her
got one of
videos.
those.
Yeah,
She's got a film of that too.
yeah, she was just looking at this area of the woods, and suddenly this small figure that had the predator effect, it was standing dead still, and all of a sudden it just shot away, and you could see it. It's like, oh my god, and I was just amazed by that. So this is it's incredible. It really
Might be
is.
on the edge of something here, huh?
Yeah. Do you think?
But I'm glad we're talking about it because it's going to get out, and a lot of people are experiencing this stuff, and they don't have answers, and perhaps we're on the edge of discovering how that happens.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they understand dimensions and what it's all about, it's just a different levels of consciousness that exists out there in the universe. And aliens have different levels of consciousness depending on what alien you're talking about, because there are different types of those. Which brings me to the next point of the different types of Bigfoots are here because they have different genomes
Yes.
brought about by different type of aliens.
Now I've heard from people, and it's just people I've talked to through the course of the show, and have read reports that people have submitted that I don't know where they come by this information, but they claim that there are some Sasquatch are taken as youth into these starships and then taken away for a couple years and brought back. And I think it sounds kind of hard to believe, because I mean, how could they have such a clear knowledge of that, and where are they getting the information from? But it does raise a compelling point. Is it possible that is indeed happening? That perhaps that's the point at which that person you saw, they were just dropping them back off. It's like their 2 years was over and they came back down. I don't know, but it does make you think.
Right? Also, we talked about time earlier.
Mm-hmm.
When you go out in space, and this has been established by the astronauts that have been out there, time is not the same as it is here. The faster you go in space, the slower your time will be.
Yes.
In space. You can go out for a year and come back to Earth, and 200 some odd years have passed.
Right.
If you're traveling at the speed of almost at the speed of 99% of the speed of light, if you can go that fast.
Mm-hmm.
So energy can go fast. I mean, it's faster than light. Because when Einstein said nothing can go faster than light, he was talking about mass.
Right.
Nothing physical can go in our three-dimensional environment can go faster than light.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're on the edge of really getting to something with all this
Yeah.
depth.
Yeah. Well, there are examples of very credible research that says that things move faster than light, because apparently our universe is expanding faster than the speed of light, and so all of that mass has to be traveling past that point as well.
That gets into a theory too that I'm working on right now, which as everybody knows, there's a black hole in the middle of our Milky Way galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
We know that, right? When you get to the event horizon, where everything just drops off, that's when the laws of physics actually fall apart.
Okay.
That's the only place they fall apart in our universe, is right there. Well, no, it's one other place, and that's 0 degree Kelvin, which is like minus 460 degrees, something like that, Fahrenheit.
Okay.
That's the coldest you can get. Well, when you get to that spot, the laws of physics fall apart again. So there's two spots that laws of physics do not operate, and that's in the black hole, and that's when everything is nothing and everything is everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's a weird way to say that, but
Sure.
I believe that's where, well, I don't know if I want to say that yet or not. I haven't looked into it deep enough, but
Sure.
if you can shoot off, or if you can actually create things at that point, the universe is expanding, and if you've elevated yourself into a highest level of consciousness you can get to, you're going to get to the level of the one consciousness that exists in everything, all of us, which, by the way, we think we're separate people, but we're not. We're all one, one energy, vibrating at different frequencies, and that's the laws. If we can get into what's really going on in the black hole, it might be what religions would call heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you are your own creator, because we were made in the image of a very special entity, a very special alien. We are, for lack of a better word, I call him God. That's a pretty good word. And if that's the case, we were made to be creators. And you wonder why aliens haven't taken over the planet or done something, because they got all this energy, all this technology. They're not allowed to. I don't think they can, because number one, they're not better than us. They're just different areas. They're different levels of consciousness. It goes on and on and on. I get wrapped up in my head with this stuff because it's so
Well,
compelling to me.
yeah, the rabbit hole can go as deep as you can follow it. I mean, really, there's no limits.
Yeah, we'll call it the rabbit black hole.
But it's compelling, and you're right. I mean, I think that we are very, very much in our infantile states of understanding any and all of this, and I think that classic sciences would say that it's all labeled and categorized and stuff, but I think that that's just like a thin veneer of what's going on here, and there's so much above and below that, and to the left and the right of that we are just infants in all of this, and there's so much
true.
to know. But I think you've got to open your mind up to the possible, and people may scoff at some of that, but to be truly following a scientific model, you have to have an open mind to any possibility, and you can only close that off when you can rule it out factually and through repeatable demonstration. So anything that has not been ruled out is a potential, a possibility. And so, I think that we're conditioned to have closed minds, and I think that what I see going on now is at least an openness to embrace new ideas, and because I don't know, it seems like the world is obviously changing quite a bit, not just given the current circumstances, but just in general. The last few years, decade maybe, people have just been, I don't know, anxious, and people seem to need the world to expand and their awareness to expand, and I think people are searching, and that's what this is all about. And so
I think that's what the Mayan calendar of 2012 was all about. It's when the new age began of understanding, or enlightenment, I should say, is that a better word?
Sure.
And we're all becoming enlightened. I hope I am, and not just throw me in the Looney Tunes here, but I feel like because there's so many physicists. I think, who was it? Max Planck, who was the father, really, of quantum physics, got the Nobel Prize for discovering it. He's made a statement, science can progress one funeral at a time, which means some scientist with all these great ideas has to die off and something new comes along,
Yeah, they do tend to be the gatekeepers.
That's a funny statement. Science progresses one funeral at a time.
Well, and that's an interesting point though too, because there seems to be a politics to science, and they seem to have their club, and it's a very astute observation that it will take the passing of the guard in order to progress, and it's unfortunate that people get so calcified in a viewpoint, but I guess it happens.
Well, we've been brainwashed, and we have been since we were here. As babies, we were being taught that everything that you see is what's real.
Yeah.
And really, we create our own reality, and that's a hard one to swallow, too. People think you're just happenstance when this happened, or when that wreck happened, or you're the victim here and you're the hero over here. Well, we're all spirits. We're all spiritual. And like it or not, if you can kick religion out if you want to. Religion sometimes can hurt people, but sometimes it's good for people too. But you can't deny spirituality, because Tesla said that what one man calls God, another man calls quantum physics. So there's a synonymous ring there between the two. They're the same. So if we're spiritual beings, that means we were here before. We're now embodied in a body, and I have a belief that we have multiple embodiments, and it's because we have a chance to make things. We have a chance to elevate our consciousness, and that's what we're doing at this moment, is trying to elevate our consciousness. And if we can do that to a high enough level, we'll be better.
Yeah.
I had something I wrote today, which I had it up on my screen so I could see it. It was really good. I got inspired. Well, this guy, I had a couple of people I was responding to today. That's what I do.
Uh-huh.
And it was just interesting what just came to my mind. I wrote it, and wow, did I just have that? Those are the things that come to you, you know. And even Tesla, when he had, I don't want to compare myself to Tesla or Einstein, nothing like that. I'm not even close, but Tesla, a lot of his answers to his issues that he was having problems with would come to him after he woke up out of his sleep.
Isn't that
So
something?
that's where I get into the sleep stages too, the alpha state and the theta state.
Sure.
As you go into the delta state, which is very deep sleep, and who knows, that might be another dimension that you're experiencing. It's really in a reality in another place.
Yes.
Don't know.
Well, I want to get into that a little bit on the other side because I have some theories about that too. I want to bounce off you, but we're about to go to our last break already, Ron. Can you believe it? It's been an hour and a half.
Goes fast.
It does. It's almost quantum, sir. But ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back. Again, this is our last break of the night. We got a half hour to go. I will open the phone lines for the last half hour. If anyone wants to call in with a question for Ron, please feel free. The phone number to call into the show is 720-923-0500. Again, 720-923-0500. If you got a question for Ron Morehead, please feel free to call in. We'll do our best to get to as many of them as we can, or if none call in, then we'll just keep talking. So we'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go away. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Last half hour is upon us here on the Paranormal Portal, but it's been flying by. Our special guest today, of course, is Mr. Ron Morehead, who's joining us. And we've been having an epic discussion. But Ron, I got a phone in the calls in the queue. Would you mind taking a couple calls?
Oh, I love it. Thank you.
All right, let's get to some calls here. And this is area code 254. You're on the air.
Hi, Brent. It's Kathy.
Hi, Kathy. Welcome to the show.
Hi. I wanted to ask Ron a couple of questions.
Okay, go ahead.
Earlier in the show, you were describing some of the things that happened when you were out doing your research or doing your audios, that you felt like you were frozen or that you couldn't go forward.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
And, okay. Well, I kind of have experienced that myself. And I also wanted to know about you also mentioned that you were talking about somebody taking a gun out there to try and shoot one of them, and it wasn't going to happen. But that for one thing, that Bigfoot is like a sentient being, and that it knows, it can read you. I think that was the words that you used.
Something like that. I think they can read auras. A lot of animals can read auras too, though. Horses can read auras. The aura is the energy around you. Yeah.
Well, I kind of had an experience like that, and I'm dealing with it. But it was back in the mid '90s. But anyway, I know that animals look at each other, and I know that they communicate. Bigfoot probably communicates. There's my feeling is that this being knew what I was thinking. He I want to say stabilized me, or I know I was afraid, and I know that you can freeze up from fear. I've never ever done it before, but when I had my encounter, I froze. But I could see him, and I could see him moving back and forth. And have you ever had any kind of anomalies with their eyes or the colors of their eyes?
No, I haven't. I've been asked that question before, but really wasn't paying attention to the eyes. We weren't looking for the eyes. We were looking to see creature because they're so elusive, and I'm not sure they were actually physically there all the time when we was hearing them, because we rarely got glimpses of them. My daughter has seen them 3 times, and I've only seen them once, and that was a glimpse. Again, if they ever come in and just look at you, I've heard about their eyes changing colors depending on what they're doing, and it depends what species you're looking at, which type of Bigfoot, because like I mentioned earlier, I think there's different genomes, different types of these things out there. Some can do one thing, some can do something else. So,
yeah, I've kind of come through that too after hearing everything that I've heard, but what I saw was that his eyes they blipped at me and they were blue, and I thought, I know that he knew what I was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But I was frozen. But, I didn't know if you had experienced anything like that when you said that you could back up, but you couldn't go forward.
Well, not with their eyes. I didn't see anything that we didn't. Well, we was looking for the creature. We was looking for some runaway, and who knows? It might have been pixelated right there by us, and we wouldn't have known it. It was dark, almost dark. It was moonlit night. And at 8,400 feet elevation, you can read a newspaper up there in the Sierras. If anybody been up that high in the summertime, it's pretty bright.
Wow.
Yeah. And well, that's all I wanted to ask. I'm trying to figure all this out too.
Well, thanks for
I
your
do
call.
appreciate it.
Yeah, they have
Yeah,
a
I
extremely
appreciate
flexible vocal mechanism, and they can do a lot with frequency that we don't hear probably, and that may have been what caused the factor to come over you like that. What came over us too, it might have been just the frequency they were emanating. We don't know. Just don't know. There's a lot of things we don't know yet. We just speculate. But thanks
Yeah,
for
he
your
didn't make
call.
a sound. He was just 5 feet away from me, and he wasn't making any sounds. But
Yeah.
I have heard. Now that I've heard some of your recordings, I've heard the whoops and everything like that. I mean, we didn't know what they were. We thought it was some kind of a weird bird. But now I know what it was. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
At one time we heard an owl, what we thought was an owl, my daughter and I turned my little recorder on I had in my pocket, but I had the speaker switched on, and when I turned the mic on to record it squealed. You know how they would do back as cassettes. That's how we had those days. And the owl I was trying to record, which was up the draw just a little ways, turned into Bigfoot chatter. So they can sound like an owl if they want to.
Wow.
They can sound like anything they want to sound like.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you, Kathy, for your call. I appreciate that. It's nice to hear from you.
I have a theory that they have more than 2 vocal cords.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know how we'll ever know that unless we get one to tell us or come in and talk to us or something. But
right.
I just think they have to have more than 2 vocal cords to do what they do.
Sure. Yeah. And that's really interesting. I know. And again, she may not have heard. She didn't hear the sound at the time, but you're right. If it was out of our hearing range, it would sound just like normal, like quiet, I suppose. But that's crazy. We got another call, and this is from area code 605. You're on the air.
Hey, this is Taco.
Hey, Taco, how you doing? Thanks for calling in.
Hey, good guys. How are you?
Good, thanks. What's on your mind tonight, brother?
Good. This is kind of a off-the-wall thing here. I just wanted to find out what you thought about Sasquatch possibly being in the Black Hills of South Dakota.
Well, I think they can be where they want to be. If they're interdimensional, like I suspect they might be, yeah, they can be in the Black Hills. Have you ever looked up reports in the Black Hills?
No, I don't really hear much about this going on in South Dakota, and I know I've mentioned it to Duke. I know he's in the chat room, and I believe he told me there's been 1 or 2 reports of them out here. But the main reason I was wondering possibly what you thought about it is because I'm not too far from the Black Hills, and I got some friends out there. What do you think if they are interdimensional and they basically only will show themselves to who they want to see or who they want to be around? What do you think the chances are that if I went out there and did some wood knocks and some other calls like that, that I could actually get some audio of them to add to the Paranormal Portal as a show? What do you think I could? What would you think?
Yeah. I think you should try that. Yeah, you should do that. And don't overdo it though. They have to be the aggressor. They choose the time and who they want to deal with. So it depends on your attitude and who you're with. Don't go by yourself, because there are bad ones out there. I do believe that. There's bad ones that are malicious, and you don't know for sure which ones you're going to attract when you do stuff like that. But I have a lot of people actually get my records. I have 2 CDs too with the vocalizations on them that I offer on my website. But people will buy those thinking they're going to go blast them and attract the Bigfoot. Well, I had somebody do that, and they said they had something come crashing down through the trees, and they seen the thing. It came right out at them and just scared the crap out of them.
Oh, jeez.
And so I don't recommend blasting the sounds that I've recorded, because we don't know what they're saying. You just don't know. They might be having a mating call or something. That'd be bad.
Yeah, I don't need to be dealing with that. Because if I do it, I'd like to possibly do it live, put it on my channel, so Brent can share it with everybody, and I was just curious about that, because we have that big Sturgis rally, so I think that that Sturgis rally may distract them from something. So I'd probably end up going out there when it's a little slower. I just wasn't sure if maybe you thought it'd be best if I was like deep woods, or if I just kind of was on the outskirts, because I really.
If I were you, I would go there with no intention on trying to trick them or discover anything other than just for yourself. And then once you establish some type of rapport where they know who you are and know they can trust you, then bring in your recorder and do different things like that. You knock on wood 3 times, not too often, but just a series of 3s. And I would just go there and try it. But again, don't try to trick them, because you won't do it. It won't work. You just can't trick these things. They're ahead of the game. And if they know you're trying to trick them, set up a camera trap. We set up camera traps. We tried all that stuff up there. The only thing we could capture was their vocalizations, and I think we were very, very fortunate to get that. I don't know why that was allowed or why we got to do that, knowing what I think I know now. I don't know. But maybe it's just so I could come out with what I'm coming out with now with this, what they're really all about. There's a higher consciousness. And at least the ones I dealt with, I think, are a higher consciousness. And by the way, I think we're all headed for a higher consciousness. That's our goal in life, is to try to achieve better, to become better. Become better by being compassionate and being, have empathy for other people and what they're going through. And once you can do that and get rid of the hate and the animosity that's in your life, if there is any, that leads you to a higher consciousness. And I think that's what it's all about. I don't know how I got that, but I did.
That's fantastic, because I actually grew up in Missoula, Montana, and I had no idea about any of this at the time, and I wish I did, because my backyard was the mountain,
Yeah.
But I just wanted your thoughts on it, to see what you thought about it. Plus, I haven't called in a while, and I wanted to
well, I'm glad you did.
Converse.
Yeah, thanks for your question. That's my thoughts. I wouldn't try to trick them to start with. Just go out there and try to establish something first, and then once you know you've probably got something going on, then go back and just be open with it. Don't try to sneak, because they're going to see right through that. At least the ones I dealt with are that intelligent, and I got a feeling most of them are.
I would.
I mean,
agree.
Personally, I think. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just was agreeing with Ron. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, I think that a lot of things are actually smarter than humans, because they're not killing themselves in mass numbers. So,
well, I think that's why UFOs are hanging around so much nowadays, because I think they know what we're doing to the earth and the environment, and these things know it too. A lot of Native Americans have Bigfoot as their spiritual guide. And did you know that an animal will make it through catastrophes where the humans don't do so well? And I think that's why some Native Americans have a Bigfoot as their spiritual guide, because they might be able to see through. And these things maybe have the DNA component in them to get through this 5G stuff and all this bad stuff that's probably trying to happen to the earth right now, where we may not do so well. It's just the way we are. We're destroying ourselves. And I don't think that's going to continue like it is.
Mm-hmm.
The big picture of this whole thing that someday I'd like to get into with somebody.
Yeah, we seem to be on a crash course, but thanks, Taco. I appreciate your call, brother.
All right, thank you very much, and everyone in chat, I appreciate it, and Brett and everybody else, and you guys are fantastic. Just keep doing what you're doing, and this world's going to be just fine.
Well, I hope so. All right, brother. We'll talk to you soon. Take care. All right. Yeah, I mean, you're right. I don't know. I don't know what to think about all of this. I mean, sometimes the world is at such a maddening pace that it's just, it gives me a headache to try to think about it all. But it seems that there's a lot for us to learn from our natural counterparts, and I mean all nature. We're just, I don't think human beings are supposed to be driven at the pace we're being driven. I don't think that's our natural state. I think we're pushing ourselves forward at such a crazy pace, And it's like the kind of discovery that's going on largely in our world is these technological discoveries, and they get forced out at a breakneck speed because there's money to be made. And of course, you see all of the social and societal issues that are ramifications of the introduction of all of these technologies at a blinding pace. And I think that we all need to learn how to get back out into the woods and get centered and get grounded and slow ourselves down to find, that center. You know what I mean?
I do. Yeah, that's good because that's what we're headed for. We're headed for self-destruct.
Yeah.
Too much. We weren't made to be what we are. I mean, we're made to be something else. We're made to achieve a higher level of consciousness, and we're all just dumbfounded in this third dimension that we think we're stuck with, but we're not really stuck with it.
Mm-hmm.
We can evolve. We will evolve. We have to. That's what we're made to do. And you do that through compassion, through love, through caring for other people. You don't do it through hurting somebody else.
Right.
I know my wife and I, we have a saying: if what you're saying doesn't help somebody, don't say it.
Right. No, that's brilliant. That's beautiful.
Anyway, we work at that. And stay healthy. That's important nowadays, especially with all this crap going on.
Yeah.
As healthy as you can, given the circumstances.
Yeah. So what's next for you, Ron? I mean, we've got about 9 minutes left of the show. So I want to give you some time to talk about what you're working on, what directions you're going here.
Well, my conventions that I've been scheduled, I was supposed to be in Georgia last week, and I got another one that got canceled on me for the 4th, but we're doing a Zoom live stream on the 4th with Toby Johnson and Sandy, which was going to be held live in Auburn. But anyway, on the 17th, I was supposed to go to Minnesota. That's got canceled. I was supposed to be in a big casino on the 2nd of May. That's got canceled.
Mm-hmm.
So depends on how long this stuff goes on. Depends on how many. What I got going on now is basically just responding to people, being on programs like this, and I'm really considering another book just because I think I've learned some things since my last book, even the Quantum Bigfoot. And my website, ronmorehead.com, spelled with one O. My first book, Voices in Wilderness, is my chronicle of doing this for 4 years. And it talks about all the things we went through and what happened and how it happened and what went on then. Then my second book, which is The Quantum Bigfoot, which we talked about a little bit tonight, the aspects of quantum theory, how it works. And I've had a lot of people say, well, it's just a theory. Well, no, it's not just a theory. It only makes it theories because you can't see it. Quantum physics goes into the macro world and into the micro world too.
Mm-hmm.
And you use quantum physics every day, but you'll never prove it. And that's what science is wanting to do, is prove Bigfoot. If Bigfoot is what I'm alluding to, what I think they could possibly be, science is not going to prove them. Mm-hmm. They have to just establish that they could be because of what we do know. And they need to, I think you need to get classical science, mainstream science, and modern science, which is quantum physics, by the way. Modern science is called quantum physics. Mm. And they need to couple those. I think they need to get them together and start realizing there's more going on than what classical science allows them to do.
Yeah.
So what I got going on is I got another one in June that I hope doesn't get canceled down in Oregon, and just stuff.
Yeah.
Every day I got to respond to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people, whatever, questions, which I love. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
I'm sitting here all hibernating in my house now because of that virus going around.
Yeah.
I'm doing well, but I'm 77 years old now, and I hope to make a difference. That's all I want to do. I'm not trying to prove that Bigfoot exists. I don't do that anymore. I don't do that at all because I know what I know, and I just tell people that if they want to believe it, fine. Mm-hmm. The science behind these sounds and the science behind what I have is what people ought to tune into. Dr. Curlin's report is a full paper. It's in a book, Man Like Monsters on Trial, produced by the UBC Press in Vancouver, BC. And you got that, and you got Scott Nelson's paper on the how he transcribed the language. We don't know what they're saying, but he knows it's a language by the definition of language. So we got that. Plus we got a lady called Nancy Logan, who is only one of 10 in the state of California certified as court reporter in several languages, court interpreter, in several languages. She listened to our sounds way before Scott did, and she said, she challenged anybody to try to mimic those sounds, and you can't do it. You can't do it. And they are showed not to be speeded up, manipulated in any way, so you got to do it just like that. And anyway, it just goes on and on.
It does. We got a question in the chat room earlier, and I forgot to ask you, but what do you think of the Dogman phenomenon? Do you have any opinions on that?
Sure. Can we tell you?
Yeah. No, that's good, Ron. You can just keep it to yourself.
For the Egyptian hieroglyphs of the dog dog head on a man's body, is there a core truth of what that could be? I think if aliens are manipulating different entities on Earth, which we've talked about during this program, they could manipulate anything. They could be a dog man. You could talk about the Skinwalker Ranch, which you're not supposed to call it Skinwalker if you're a Native American, because that's a taboo. But yeah, they could be. They could very well be. I think there's different things going around that we don't see. They're out of our perception. We are limited with what we can see with our eyes because we're in this three-dimensional world of frequency. And we only see within light's frequency. And the only way you know about other things if you open your mind up to them and start studying like animals can see. A camera can see more than we can. That's how orbs are photographed. You go up to Joe Hauser's Montana Vortex and you can film them up there. I mean, he's got them. I've filmed them up there with him one time, and they got some kind of a design in them. When you blow them up and look at them, but you don't see them with your regular eyes. The camera's lens will pick up things your eyes don't pick up.
Sure.
And like an animal, a cat can see a lot better than we can at night. A lot of animals see things we don't see. And sometimes you'll see your animal just all of a sudden you get froze looking at a spot that you don't see anything there.
Right.
What's he looking at?
Right.
What's going on? There's things we don't see. If you can realize that, you can get out of your little box that you're in, and you can realize that there's more going on that you just don't see. Once you get to that, somebody tell me how far it is to the end of the universe, and I'll be happy. I presented that to some scientists I knew one time, and no one would answer me because it's ridiculous. There can't be an end. Now, how can you fathom in your three-dimensional brain no end to something? Right. Everything we know of has a beginning and end, but that's because we live in this three-dimensional world.
Right.
And in this timeline that we're in, linear time, which does not exist according to physics.
Sure.
It's only a matrix of what we think is real.
Yeah.
And that's hard to wrap your head around. Really, it is.
It all is with our three-dimensional sensibilities, but I think people are ready for it. I think that they're starving for it.
Yeah. Einstein was asked one time. Somebody asked him, "What does it feel like to be the smartest man in the world?" He said, "Ask Nikola Tesla."
That's right. I remember that quote.
So I respect all those guys. They broke the ground on all this stuff 100 years ago or better, and it's just coming out now, 100 years later, with me and some other people who are talking about it. But how it relates to these creatures that are here called Bigfoot is what we talked about tonight. And I really appreciate being on your program tonight.
Brother, I'm absolutely thrilled. It's just been an incredible journey of thought and discussion, and I really appreciate you taking the time. Your website is ronmorehead.com, is that right?
Yes, or bigfootsounds.com. It's got some of my articles I've written on there. It's got, you can acquire my books or my CDs. They're all for sale. And the first CD I produced was Al Berry's story. And Jonathan Frakes of Star Trek's The Next Generation narrates it.
Oh, cool.
It's about 40 minutes long. We've integrated the sounds in there, the aggressive sounds. The second CD, which I produced, I narrate, and it's about 40 minutes long too, but it talks about my ventures up there, and it gives you the sounds that I recorded 2 years later at the same camp that Al Berry recorded the ones on Volume 1, Bigfoot recordings. And then I have my two books, Voices in the Wilderness and Quantum Bigfoot.
Excellent. Well, thank you again, sir. And ladies and gentlemen, we're about down to a minute left of our show, and I want to make sure to give Paisley Wild, The Spaces Between, is coming up next after us on TFR Live, iHeart, TuneIn, and TalkStream Live. Definitely check her out. She's got a great show. It's called The Spaces Between. So that's coming up next. Tomorrow night on the show, we've got Joe Roop of Lighting the Void, founder of the Fringe FM. So that's coming up tomorrow night. So lots of great things. But Ron, it's been an absolute splendid journey. Thank you so much again. It's been an absolute honor.
Honor was mine. Thank you, Brad.
All right, everybody. Well, I hope you all have a great evening. I hope you enjoyed our show tonight. Thank you all so much for being here and being a part of it. And be sure to spread the word about the Paranormal Portal and follow us and let other people know. And we'll be back tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So watch for us then. We love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. Help each other out. Find the magic in every day and remember to laugh as much as you can. Good night, everybody.